This is Dr. Andre Thomas, and today we're going to talk about the three types of groups. Three types of groups that influence politics for the kingdom of God. So the three types of groups. The first group are the political visionaries themselves. These are men and women like Esther. She was a political visionary. These are men and women like David, like Daniel. Daniel was a hybrid. He was a spiritual leader and a political leader as well. But you have men like Joshua. You have men like Uzziah. They were all political leaders. So the first group you have are people who God has anointed. God has given them a genetic gift for political leadership, and then He anoints them. He anoints them, gives them the genetic gift at birth, and then He anoints them. And they are anointed to bring about or execute an agenda for heaven concerning their nation, in their time, in their dispensation. The second group are the men and women that mentor them. So these are men and women who would pray for them, who would anoint them, who would cover them in intercession. Okay, these are men and women who would be alongside them. So these are the men and women who will pastor them. So this will be like a Samuel, like a Nathan. So you have those who are called to be Samuels and Nathans to these political visionaries. In fact, there's a name that I should mention concerning the political visionaries. These are Cyruses. So Cyrus was a political visionary, and he was a political visionary who was not of the tribe of Israel, but his policies were prophetic. He took prophecy and made it policy, even though he was not of the tribe of Israel, but he took prophecy and made it policy. He took the agenda of God and made it the policy of his government. And that's what Cyruses do. They focus on taking the intent of God and turn it into public policy. Now, the third group of people are a group that many people don't really focus on, but this is a critical group of people, and these are the men and women that teach the philosophy of the kingdom of God, the philosophy of heaven, the ideology of heaven concerning politics. They actually teach men and women how to govern. They teach men and women how to lead. By me, princes rule. That's the spirit of wisdom speaking. So these men and women carry the wisdom of God for political leaders. Now the Bible tells us that we see that spirit of wisdom on Moses, because Moses received the wisdom of God on how to build a nation. He built the judiciary. He built the priesthood. He wrote the laws that governed the nation. He wrote the manslaughter laws. So he had the spirit of wisdom on him for the governance of a nation, and the ideology for the governance of Israel was given to him. And he shared that ideology. And yet he was a spiritual leader as well. So he was a philosophic leader. The actual philosophy for the nation of Israel was actually entrusted to him as well. Then you have someone like Solomon. I mean, Solomon was a king himself, but he was a king that shared an ideology and a philosophy of governance that other kings came and sat and learned from. So there are men and women who are anointed. They may just be spiritual leaders, they could be philosophical leaders, and these men within the secular world are like Pluto or Socrates. I remember doing an exercise with my students at the local college, and we were studying philosophy, and I had them read the 20-year plan for the nation of Barbados. And I told them to tell me what school of philosophy produced the plan. And I was surprised when they told me that the plan was 90% Pluto and 10% Socrates. Absolutely. So that school of philosophical thought produced the plan. Well, there is a school of philosophical thought that is biblical. So there are biblical philosophies, and one of the areas that I've seen is a gap in the development of political leaders all around the world is that they don't have an ideological foundation on how you govern from heaven, how you govern a nation so that its destiny can come forth. And we're going to teach you this. At Caribbean, Daniel and Esther Network, we are going to teach political leaders the principles and the concepts and the philosophies and the ideology of heaven when it comes to governing your nation, leading your economy. There is a way that's embedded in the scriptures that we will decode and unpack and share to you that will help you now develop. So these are the three groups of people. Number one, they're the political visionaries themselves. Number two, the men and women who mentor them, the men who counsel them, the men and women who pray for them, and thirdly, the ideological leaders, those that have the think tanks of the day, those that have the think tanks for the generation. And there are some biblical think tanks with men and women who will share biblical ideologies for the governance of nations. And we'll have men and women who are not only in positions of political influence, but they will also have the mental map of an ideology from heaven on how to navigate. This is Dr. Thomas saying, your greatness shall not be hidden.